right now, people imagining DAOs, I heard a rumor that Def Jam Records want to do a DAO. I think we need to do is be ready for when all these cool people want a DAO. That's what we need to be ready for, because we're going to need 10,000 people to help them build this. So that's what I think our position as a DAO is in the space. I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on. It feels like a good target for me at the moment.
Education seems even more important because, for instance, like I remember the early days of DAO design gems, and like in my little circles when people started talking about it, it was a lot of drawing blobs and things on napkins and
Yes.
blobs and arrows and little dots and blobs and whatever. And these were like the proto design patterns. When people gravitate towards like drawing meaningless blobs and dots and arrows, it means that they're trying to explain a concept that they can't quite put in words. And then they say, oh yeah, aha, they look at blobs and they have an aha moment. And then next time they talk about it, they cannot.
Okay, I'm going to draw some blobs in a minute. And I've got, I think, five DAO patterns. Not patterns, it's going to be blobs. What you just said then is exactly what I'm trying to achieve today, which is that aha moment. I can now think in DAOs. And once you can think in DAOs, and it's pretty straightforward actually, there's like X number of patterns involving tokens or NFTs or both, or nested DAOs. We don't know what we're calling them yet. I'm going to put some names on things that are like placeholders, the space. So I'm currently calling one structure a mini DAO. And now there's other people talking about them as sub DAOs, but they're the same thing. So what I want to do is get as many of you people as possible to be able to think in DAOs, to imagine DAOs. So we've already started it, right? So we just, like, Ksenia's been thinking about this since, like, when did you start thinking about DAOs, Ksenia?
Around about the time when I came across Ethereum, like in 2015 or something.
Yeah, before me.
There was not so many people to talk about this shit, actually. There
was no one, there's still no one to talk about it. And that's what this is what we're going to do, like, full time. Talk about DAOs, build DAOs, imagine DAOs.
At the time, what I was missing in this organizational theory and mechanism design that you studied, so that's really feeds nicely into this, because a lot of things that I think people are talking now, there is a lot of stuff that already been discussed, but there's a little.
I've sat in rooms with people who are into DAOs, and we've just been like, we've got to the point where this is just how nation states are run now. Imagining DAOs is fun. It's like one of my most like fun things to do with people. But doing it is 10 times harder. But now we're doing it. That's so. As a academic, if you like, there's different directions you to go. I became a practitioner rather than a philosopher. There's like theory, practice, and praxis, which is like the synthesis of the two. I was on that one. And what I came to realize is the only way to do this stuff is to do it. The doers create it. So everyone can imagine this stuff. There's going to be 1,000 projects all imagining stuff on a website, but it's going to be the projects doing it with technology in real time.
I just wanted to add one thing and then I shut up because I think people are more interested in what you're saying. So what I wanted to say is what seems important to me is that people who actually have knowledge in their domain start imagining it. Like, for instance,
yes,
because right now a lot of people who don't understand like myself, I never run a bar. A lot of people who don't understand how certain domain works, they know how to imagine DAOs because they're like weird freaks who know this area. And what would be cool when actual professionals in their domain get DAOs, that's where it's gonna start happening. Like, for instance, with this Ponzi bar, we actually recruited one guy who opening clubs and bars in Berlin, but we didn't do it. So we felt like this is super important, not to just have people who just know DAO shit and then get excited and go and set up like dentist DAO, but without knowing anything about this domain. Yeah, I'm done.
I actually completely agree with you there, because there's an element of you need the participation of every corner, like everyone who's going to make up the DAO to understand how to access that opportunity. Like one of the first kind of concepts I came up with in 2017 with a group of people was around like construction, and how basically every construction project is basically outsourced by 4 or 5 big companies in the UK, and then they get subcontracted out. And basically the whole idea was around, like, if you had a kind of freelance electrician or plasterer, for example, a lot of SMEs in the UK are constantly spending to retrain the employees they bring on for a job, because their credentials aren't kind of portable between each like employer, or they just don't have any real record of it. So
Yeah,
the SMEs get killed because they keep on having to retrain, like employees and stuff. Whereas you could actually just fractionalize out a massive contract job and
yes.
basically break it down into the roles you need. And if you can access the people who can fill those roles, and there's a way of verifying them, and that was the original kind of.
What that requires is a meta DAO. So what you need is a DAO with subdomains in it. So domain specificity means that this is why we've got like data DAO now, propaganda, which is our kind of media thing. There's people who are good at domain specific skill sets, and a meta DAO allows you to drill into all these sub concepts where people have autonomy over how that domain. If you imagine the data scientists become an autonomous hub inside an organization, there's a relationship between the power structure, but the power structure can only suggest what they do. It can't make anyone do anything. So in a conventional organization, you use human resources architecture to be able to punish people who are not behaving in the way that you want them to. I've experienced this my entire professional life, trying to do things that the organization didn't want me to do, but I was committed that were better. And it all turns into this kind of like lobbying game where you're almost like a politician inside a large organization, lobbying people to go down a decision-making path. So that complex negotiation needs to happen inside DAOs as well. We should do this. So the conversation we're having about bank at the moment, I just got stuck on that because I don't want to be the person who decides what the allocations are in it. So there's like a design philosophy, if you like, in DAOs that rather than, so we've created a structure called Senate, which will make important decisions because there's a hell of a lot of coordination involved in creating a vote, using the outcome effectively and incorporating into DAO process. So what a lot of people are doing is just having votes and votes. That all that's really happening is that there's a power structure underneath, which is a multi-sig that has the final say. It's all just kind of show, unless the people can directly control a multi-sig somewhere. So really this is a different paradigm to conventional organization, mainly around how power is orientated within the system, how trust is architected. And the way trust is architected in conventional organizations is through structured pyramidic power. There is a group of people at the top who have final say. Everyone underneath is essentially disempowered, but what they can do is articulate what is the best thing to do. But ultimately, there's some people in control who say yes or no. DAOs need to off-ramp that from being a small power structure to a diffused power structure through voting. This is some deep organizational theory. Are people following me at the moment?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I thought I was. Yeah, so
I get it.
We've hung out with you for a long time now, Nick. We built up a base level of like mad structural governance in our head.
good.
But
Although I have to say that when you were describing the pyramidal structure and a group or a person saying we need to do something different, it also breeding ground for new companies. Oftentimes,
Yes.
when you have I don't know, the C level of a company, and one of them is going against it just says, fine, I'll just become your competitor. And I don't know if your idea would curb that innovation or not.
The opposite. It would encourage it. So let's say propaganda is a DAO that we incubate. lives inside the governance structure of finance.vote. There's a global set of votes and governance structure that determines that everyone follows. And that's largely just like operational. It's like kind of things that governments do. Governments create organizational architecture to keep all the basic stuff running. Roads, whatever, healthcare in some countries, they do stuff. And government has total control over what's inside it. There's nothing enters or leaves the pyramid without permission. The mini DAOs that we create can essentially leave the enterprise whenever they want and become a full DAO on their own and have their own governance structure. In fact, we want that to happen because what's happened there is that it's budded into a sustainable organization itself. So if Data DAO becomes a service DAO that people can send CSV files to or data sets, and then they get passed into a beautiful Joomla Analytics dashboard or some kind of charts or maybe even a bit of data journalism, and Lizzle, who's going to be running that, is a data journalist. That's totally feasible. That is a self-sustainable, revenue-generating enterprise for a DAO that can go and live on its own. And we then form an alliance where you're completely autonomous, but we collaborate.
So it's a bit like cell division in a way.
It's like slime mold. So I did biophysics as a master's.
Not the most beautiful of analogies, but yeah.
So slime mold, it is beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful things in the world. Let me get you a diagram that makes sense. So
yeah. Slime.
Yeah.
According to Adventure Time, slime is one of the elements the universe is made of.
So what happens? Let me just give you so what a slime mold is a biofilm. And a biofilm is a collection of autonomous organisms. So you're a little bug that lives in the river doing buggy things. You're like low-level multicellular organism. And you form a little group with your crew because you want the same thing. So you tend to like cluster near rocks or something. But then it turns out there's some other bugs doing the same thing and they collaborate. So there's like a slime mold is actually a collaboration of autonomous organisms that share resources. They even communicate to one another through a biomechanical mechanism called quorum sensing. So these little groups of microcolonies cluster together in this kind of like weird amorphous organizational structure, sharing resources and doing things called like what are called autocatalytic reactions, where organism A creates something that B needs, and B uses it to create C, which A needs. So A's running on something that is created by a third thing that uses what A uses, autocatalytic reactions. And they form this stable thing that sticks to rocks, and they're like impenetrable. It's like a fortress. You try and get slime mold off a rock. Can't do it with a chisel. It's impossible. And then, but what happens is the sort of microcolonies like fill the rock up. So what you need to do is find some new rocks. So they bud little microcolonies where there's like a little crew of them get together in a little bubble, and then they just branch off and flow into the river and find a new rock. And that's what's happening.
Actually, I think that your analogy is quite interesting to the idea I've been having. I am very new to the Web 3.0 and crypto as a whole, but my experience is in entrepreneurial thinking and building companies and managing corporations. And throughout my experience in this group here, and this is the first DAO I've ever looked into, it seems to me that there's a huge gap between the knowledge havers and the businesses that you were discussing. And the idea I've noticed since the beginning of sort of interaction here is that it seems like there's a piece missing to me, which is almost an educational consultative team that successfully incubates and delivers these companies. You were mentioning about a skate park guy. So here's this guy that knows nothing about it. He needs to have some form of incubation. He needs to have some form of a
How do you
consultative
know?
team to get it.
Wait a minute. How do you know that he knows nothing? Maybe all he's doing is
So
running skate parks
let
all
me
his life.
just interrupt and tell you what we are
Yeah.
doing. And so yes, I completely agree. Some of you will have heard me say I'm going to set up a course in January for DAO leaders. I'm going to take responsibility for a mini DAO, which I, as quickly as possible, want to give the responsibility to someone else. A learning DAO or a research DAO. I haven't decided yet. And it'd be both. It's learning and teaching. My job for 10 years was learning and teaching. So could be learning and teaching DAO. And what this will be responsible for is training DAO leaders. So all of you will be more than welcome to join this course. And it's a structured curriculum. So I designed curriculum for 10 years, validated like 1,000 undergraduate and master's courses and run about 30 of them. So what I'm good at is creating master's level courses. So I was the coordinator of all master's courses at a university for like 5 years. So that's what we're going to create, is a master's course, formal curriculum. It will be 2 master's level. I eventually want to get degree awarding powers for this DAO. So it can give out PhDs that are officially recognized in multiple territories. I think I can get Malta to do it, but I'll be able to convince some countries to recognize them as master's level courses. And then those people will be fully trained to build DAOs and be DAO leaders within other DAOs. So that's the third mini DAO that's going to be able to. So you are 100% correct, Fabs. That's exactly what's been needed. And it's going to be a lot of work. That's the only reason why I haven't done it already, is because I know how much pain and suffering goes into running an educational program.
I see it going beyond that, because education is just the first step. You still need to have a sort of a delivery mechanism that is very consultative. So I'm thinking it's a mix between a course and Accenture.
Yes. So what I want this to be is a DAO of DAOs, which it's a DAO that makes DAOs, organization that launches new DAOs into the world. If some cool artist wants a skate park, we want to get you that as quickly as possible. We're doing it today, right? So we've got a test mint later on today. This is a group of people helping us test software, reducing risk of a launch. And all of these things are they're literally like launching rockets. Some of them blow up on the launch pad. You have to have good engineers looking at code. You need everything from hardcore emerging technology through to education, through to marketing activities. You need Discord expertise. You need everything. And so what we need to do is build our governance structure. And this is what I've been trying to do. And I'm slowly unfurling the ideas here, because they are mind-blowingly complex and weird and outside of. I've been in the position where I've thought about governance professionally for a decade prior to this. So everyone's got a lot catching up to do to understand this. So it does need this really thoughtful, interrogating, structured learning environment in order to fully understand this.
I wanted to just say something quickly, because we'll have half hour through the workshop, because we have new people like Fabs. Maybe we could outline a structure of this workshop, because it's a chatty discussion, but because we know each other, we know how to flow into a workshop-shoppy thing. So can you outline the structure, what you want to do?
I can.
And then
in the general chat. Let me.
Yes. Sorry, and then we have a
discussion.
I can take a look. We can have a discussion afterwards.
This is the structure.
Just to add to what you were saying, I think that it's the best way to execute it is to have this finance vote as the showcase. Oftentimes, you see the biggest problem of companies is that they have a product that they don't use internally. And I think that's the most stupid thing in the world.
Wait a minute. If you just wait and learn a bit more about our DAO, you will see that what we're doing is exactly this dog fooding stuff. So you don't have to talk about what we're already talking for more on a second.
So what we're doing is, this is like collaborative. I try to create co-creative exercises. A lot of what I've been doing is just explaining stuff to people. But the more we progress, we'll be able to turn these things into actually truly collaborative sessions. This was intended to be one of my first attempts at this. So in my mind, I thought we were going to do this for like maybe 2 hours. Half an hour in, feel free to drop in and out as much as you want. This is totally voluntary exercise. It's as much for us as it is for you. Wherever the us and you boundary is, I don't think there is one. But what I propose we do is I quickly explain these 5 types of DAOs that we can do. And you can go and run off. And for the latter half, we have a kind of little bit of an async mode. I was going to get Nft to give us a little 5-minute chill out or something as a break, and then we go off and imagine DAOs.
Yeah, I'm happy.
You cool for doing 10 minutes? Let's say 10 minutes on the hour.
Okay.
Nft's superpower is that he can open up your brain into pure imagination land. So get Nft to open up your imagination glands on the hour, and then we disappear for half an hour and then have a think. You're more than welcome to splinter off into, we've got other little voice channels you can jump into if you want smaller groups, or you can go and do it on your own. But we come back with a DAO idea. That's the idea. Half an hour async. Then we've got half an hour to just quickly share our ideas. Does that sound like a good idea?
Yep.
So what I'm going to do is quickly jump on my whiteboard thing and explain these. I think I can do it in 20 minutes. I apologize if it's incredibly abstract and weird for you. It is, as Ksenia said, blobs on pages. That's where DAOs still are, but I think we can actually move past blobs on stages very soon, blobs on pages. Can you see my blank page here? There's a basic token DAO where there's a currency which gets essentially split into different categories. This is where token economics was in 2017. 20% goes to the team or whatever. We've done basically this where we've got half of a token supply, 50% of the token supply. Some was sold to investors who've since sold. There was an auction. There's a liquidity mining bit. There's a capital reserve bit if we want to do a Series A. But the idea is that this is essentially like a launch team whose job it is to activate this treasury, which for us is like between 400 and 500 million. I always forget which one it is. But let's say half of a token reserve that is the treasury. Here, markets happen. Tokens go up and down. Uniswap have one of these, which is worth $10 billion at the moment. And they frankly don't know how to spend it. Or they're not. The capital inefficiencies are ridiculous. There's 10 billion idle dollars sat in that treasury. We don't want it to be idle. Our treasury is issued stepwise 15 million tokens. The first one of these is going to the community, which is what we're debating on bank.vote at the moment. What is a fair split that sets the tone of our community distributions in the future? So the community distribution happens essentially, in an ongoing fashion after the first few of these clips. I think 3 of these have vested out. They come out either quarter. I think there's maybe 4 that have vested out. And then there's basically, I think it's 5 or 7 years, let's call it 5 years, of 15 million emission in tranches that, in a progressive wise manner, is handed off in complete control to the voters. So somewhere around here, I'm hoping it's next year, but I know trustless execution of voting whilst resisting governance attacks super, super hard. There's a sensible point in which you off-ramp total power to voters. I'm hoping it's on our 2nd year anniversary. We can say that we've done that. But after that point, the voters completely decide how the remainder of this treasury is spent. That's your basic token DAO. It's basically, then you've got obviously plus governance, right? Like, because now you've got to decide how you spend that money is an infinitely complex problem, depending on what you're trying to do. But yeah, this is so basically the launch of a token DAO is that. Has anyone got any questions? Does that make sense? Cool. Interrupt me, ask questions if you want. Yeah, there's a lot of richness to this. This is a profoundly disruptive thing that's happening here. Don't worry about absorbing it all at once. NFT DAOs. Any liquid NFT can be turned into a DAO. There's like a most basic DAO sort of thing that we're thinking about a lot. And I think our Stoner Cats, or now Metaverse Studios, is a DAO. That is a collection of cats who voting in a kind of hierarchical manner. This is the Council of Cats.
Cats?
Council of Cats. Stoner Cats. And these are the kind of DAO leaders in that group who've shown up and have put loads of work in with us to understand governance and to understand quadratic voting and to set the proposals up and all that sort of stuff. And they've figured it all out themselves because the software as we've designed it is meant to be pretty intuitive. It means we're on the right track. And then they set votes up for the normal cats out here. Now, who goes in here from the normal cats is where the governance comes in. And actually what they can do is start splitting off different little groups who focus on, I don't know, design or parties or something. I don't know, whatever it is. So this is Nft Governance, allows you to take a series of NFTs, 1 to N. We're going to do 10,000 Shibakus, CryptoPunks is 10,000. That's a Schelling point people are running for. And then you can basically have voting to bring the social consensus. Now, I think your most basic DAO is a shared digital asset consensus. So now the question is, what's your treasury? Now, this is the thing that Stoner Cats are a little bit stuck with. And just because they didn't plan to have a NFT DAO treasury, because NFT DAO treasuries didn't exist. Actually, they now have one. I think they've picked up some other assets, some Oni Ronins, I think. So anyway, they've got a treasury, which let's say has some NFTs in it. They could be unissued ones. So one of the things we're doing with Shibaku is there's a kind of DAO allocation of NFTs that acts as a starting treasury. Then what you can do is, so you can, if you are thinking, I'm going to build a treasury in advance of the mint, you can use our mass minting suite to issue 10,000 and put the money, the F, in the treasury. And now you're an NFT DAO with a treasury. If you've got NFTs in your treasury, you can sell them by our continuous auction mechanism if you want to issue voting IDs, like the way we do ours, or you can auction them with a trustless bidding mechanism we call the binary search auction. That we've got the contracts built for, but not the front end. Looking forward to trying that out. We nearly built a 3D auction house for this, but we ended up doing Shibaku instead. That's an NFT DAO, right? NFTs with votes. We can turn any NFT series into a DAO with influence. And I expect us to be able to on-ramp lots and lots of that. There's how many NFT series are there? I don't know. It's crazy. But they can all be DAOs. They can all use influence if they want. So that's NFT DAOs. Any questions at that point? Everyone with me? Next one. Multi-Fungible token DAOs. This is pretty straightforward. It's a token plus NFT DAO. The two things before added together. Use NFTs for governance, and this you build utility for your token, meaning a rational reason for the token to exist. For us, it is burnt. So far, it is burnt when we mint NFTs. It's a fee capture mechanism. It's an economic layer to the DAO that the work that you do as a DAO, the token somehow, through your token economics, captures value from the work of the DAO. We think burning mechanisms are the most trustless way of doing it. There are other ways of doing it, such as collect the revenue into your DAO, give it out as dividends, potentially a bit dubious, but there's other ways you can do it. And I'm calling them Nft DAOs because NFTs for governance, tokens for utility. But these can have utility as well, and that's where it gets proper wacky. And you'll notice so far that is what...
Sorry, on that note, you said these can have utility as well. Do you think tokens can also have governance power as well?
Yes, absolutely. I consider them like... So actually, I'll tell you how we're going to do this. I see the FVT holders as like the passive participants. You can basically get in on finance.vote economy just by buying the token. You're in. You don't have to do any work. You can just be along for the ride. But what there should be is a degree of signaling power to those token holders. So you can do a kind of basic form of governance. And this is where our semantic governance thing comes in. At one level, the semantic, we use these for voting, but the token holders be able to stake on, I think you should concentrate on yield. I think you should concentrate on auction. Or the community, propaganda, whatever it is. They can take their 2 million tokens or whatever and assign the stake off-chain 500k to yield, 1 million to auction, 250k to community, and so on. And that's their economic signaling. I don't want to turn up and buy a citizen's ID and get involved in all that gubbins. It's like, it's too much work for me. I just want in on it. I just want some skin in the game. So that's what we're doing. We're both this and a meta DAO, global governance structure with mini DAOs, quasi-autonomous.
I swear I thought you were going to design a smiley face.
We could definitely do smiley faces. So I'm not Tim. I'm not Tim.
Draw a smiley face and drop off. Done.
Remember, our DAOs can have DAOs in them. It's DAOs all the way down. A meta DAO is it's a DAO with a substructure of DAOs in it. We're doing this for Tribes DAO. Tribes DAO is a meta DAO. Simplest one I could think of. Has a mini DAO in Tribes DAO. Tribes DAO sets the rules. The Shibakus follow. But so do, let's say, the Bitcoiners. Have their own NFT series. NFT series. Let's say DeFi apes. And what we can do is token snapshot every DeFi token holder and make them an NFT series. Only they can mint. That's their tribe. So we have tribes inside and what happens here is that the secondary market sales from these NFTs goes into a treasury. That's the other way to build an NFT treasury. Have your secondary market sales go in a pot. So that's what we're going to do with Tribes DAO. And then these cats have to, these do their own things. Shibaku are going to have Doggo Land or something like it, which has its own like little lottery gaming system. It might have its own money. It's like a proper autonomous thing. But every now and again, they have to collaborate to decide how to spend this treasury. Maybe we want metaverse infrastructure. Maybe we want a new tribe. Maybe we want to blow it all in a giant citadel party. I don't know. Whatever they want to do. So, Rob, the suggestion you had earlier about the contractors, you can just swap out these for electricians, right? They are workers who just go and do electricity. This is where it gets into like the labor market, which is like crazy. All that stuff scares the shit out of me, to be quite honest. Getting into the really meat and potatoes of the real work. I know how difficult it is. So there's going to be thousands of people saying they're going to solve the same problem because it's so obvious. And this is where we'll just get crazy ICOs as people say, this is how they say, oh, I'm gonna build like hospital DAO and do hospitals and stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's like all of that stuff's going to happen. I pretty much prefer it in the metaverse, where the rules that I think where we should focus is on the governance infrastructure, the Web3 infrastructure. It's going to be very easy for us to get dragged into skate park governance or something. Do you know what I mean? When we should be concentrating on the high level governance infrastructure. So one of the votes that we're going to do next week is a priorities vote of all of our things we can do, because we're going to be able to do so much with this stuff. We need to focus on building out the finance.vote DAO, if you like, because this, if I've suggested earlier, is our like show home. This is like, we're experimenting with all the newest stuff, packaging it up nicely so someone without any coding experience can have a DAO. I want artists to be able to walk off the street and say, Nick, set me up a DAO. And say, just ask the DAO, they'll set one up for you tomorrow. Like, you don't need to ask me. So that's a self-sustaining, decentralized organization. There's people with autonomy in all of these places, working on whatever they want to work on, but broadly moving towards the same goal. I've got there's a totally boring one, which is the Tokenless Dow. And I'm not sure this is a DAO. But what we can do is use our Merkle root system to just take a bunch of Ethereum addresses, whitelist them in a vote, and now they've got social consensus. You're voting now. You're just voting. I think that this is like the bit where the model breaks down for me and say, I can't call this a DAO. There's no asset.
What if they have a treasury like of other tokens?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So they can invest in, let's say they have hard crypto they put together, and they have a voting
an investment DAO.
Yeah,
maybe. So I've got people asking me for investment DAOs. The problem with this is that you can't easily shuffle the membership. Without tokens, there's no way to enter or exit. It's a closed system. It's not permissionless. But we're going to use it with Shibaku just to get them warmed up on voting on quadratic voting before the tokens turn up. Yeah, what's going to happen here is basically Chris is just going to set the and this is where the power thing turns up. So I'm going to really play on this pyramid thing. This is how most things are structured. We're going to have a layered. So if you can split NFT or voting power across different layers, what are the layers? What's the power structure? So we've got a structure called Senate, which is designed to dissolve. When everything's running, we want this to disappear. Parliament, citizens, token holders doing their signaling. And I put this one as the tribes. So Tribes DAO is our ear to the market, almost. What do the Bitcoiners want? What do the polka dotters want? What do all the tribes want? Because we need to be a DAO layer that is truly multi-chain. The technology doesn't matter. What we're doing is getting the concept onto all these chains as quickly as possible. Everything that we launch is open source. So the game theory of this is that we create something successful that gets forked tomorrow, and probably set with parameters that are far less fair than ours. And because it's less fair, they can pump a token and make the token value go up quicker. So there's a weird, we just need to, what will win in the end is people working. The DAO with the biggest team, the DAO with the most consensus and coherence. I almost said solidarity then, but I don't want to sound like a communist. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. That's enough, I think. How are people's feeling after that? soaking it in, or too weird, or do you think it's nonsense? Is anyone where did anyone get lost? Did anyone say, "You've lost me now," in their heads? And if so, but what bit was it?
Does that mean that people on, say, like Polkadot will vote using like governance structures on Polkadot, or will they like vote on Ethereum? And same thing with
Yeah.
Finance and Avalanche.
So all the protocols have their own governance system. They wouldn't exist if they didn't. Bitcoin's governance is essentially hard governance minimized, and it was run by the miners. There's no disrupting that. What you could do is lobby that governance structure. So if I wanted to try and convince Bitcoin to move to proof of stake, I would set up a Bitcoin mini DAO that build up a significant voice trying to lobby the miners into mining that software. So I often call this blockchain geopolitics. The governance mechanisms of different blockchains are going to, when you start trying to interoperate these things, there's financial power structures and human power structures on both of those chains, and they're going to have to settle their differences somehow. Or collaborate, or go to war.
Can I ask something that may be totally redundant given the audience, but I think it would really benefit me? When you say you're setting all this up, and I've seen all these different models you've just described, I think it would help me to see in practice what it looks like. What are the tools that are actually in place to make these things a reality?
Let me tell you what the reality is at the moment of how we can demonstrate all this. We can launch the NFTs. We're doing one on Friday, so we can help NFTs to get into existence and immediately turn them into votes. So we can create an NFT DAO now. We have launched our token using auction.vote. We have used bank.vote on our, we dog fooded that chunk. So we've demonstrated the token DAO. We can do a token DAO and do the market making around it. So what most of the other DAO platforms sort of don't concentrate on is how you build a sustainable token economy around a token DAO. So that we can do. So we can do token DAO, NFT DAO. We are a meta DAO. I'd say we are an MFT DAO at the moment. But once we've spun up our mini DAOs, we're now a meta DAO. So all of these things are in practice right now, some of which we haven't used for a while, like auction. Yields, you can go and look at app.influence.vote. You can go and look at app.yield.vote and use those things. And soon you're going to be able to pick up an airdrop from bank.vote and use that as soon as we've settled the emission splits on it. So we can do that. I would say from January the 3rd, we can launch. We could do it now, really, but like we can launch all of these types of DAOs for anyone who wants them, as far as our bandwidth will stretch it in January.
So you feel like you have no gaps in your ability in tools and delivery, in your abilities to launch?
Did you take a look at our documentation, Fabs, that I sent you?
Yes and no. It's very technical.
It should be yes and yes.
I've skimmed through it because it's too technical for me at the moment still.
This is okay. So this is what we're missing.
I don't think we should claim that there's no gaps. We've got a great first draft, and we're going to interact with the market to discover what the market wants and needs that we haven't thought of yet.
Absolutely. We will always. What will happen is we have gaps now, and then we're going to have more gaps in the future, and then we'll have gaps everywhere. And so when you go multi-chain, there's whole different games over there. We need teams who are focused on Solana, and teams who are focused on Polkadot. This is going to be one of the hardest things you can do in emerging technology. This is bleeding edge stuff. And what we need, the bits that we're missing is we need people to help us do it. So this is why we're spinning up this propaganda thing. We need anyone who can do memes, documentation, articles, creative content, anything that spreads the word so we can get more people in here and recruit them. That's what we need probably the most. I would say we're bossing it on the product side, but what we don't have is a huge audience yet. So we're doing all sorts of like tricks to do this, including launching a dog coin. And we're piling people into our Discord at the moment at a rate of about 200 an hour or something at the moment. So we're building up a huge audience in Shibaku who are about to get released to them quadratic voting governance. Then they're going to start getting decisions over dog coin monetary policy. We're going to slowly release these concepts. And the more I think about the dog coin thing, the more beautiful it is, because there's literally no one will have any excuse if the dogs can do it. Do you know what I mean? If the dogs are doing effective decentralized governance, then you've got no excuse but to up your game, frankly.
I've been thinking about like an artist DAO or like a musician DAO, because basically if you're trying to like make music at any like a high level, you need like producers, you need like sound engineers, you need composers. Like it takes like a full team, and basically this is what like record labels exist for. You do all like a production and marketing, and you do all of those things, but then they have to keep like the majority of the distribution rights. You could have a famous performer, even though they do most of the work, they probably get like maybe only 10% of revenue generated because of the way the structures are set up. So like an artist DAO where you have all of these talent groups like composers, songwriters, people who do like promotion and like everything tied together to like a token, and you can like onboard more people and find other people to work together towards like this music creation process. So yeah, artist DAO. I don't think I've had it.
I love it. For me personally, what's coming up for me, one of my main work is like helping people, supporting them in transformation, healing, emotional therapy, you could say. And I had a good chat with this gentleman in a coffee shop the other day. A typical Bali story, to bump into someone. Hey, I'm doing this amazing crypto project. And it was like a kind of DAO to support light workers. This is like a more new age term about, people are doing like transformation work, like Reiki, healing, meditation, like that whole spectrum of things. And the idea of the DAO kind of being like, it's run, collectively by those people who are making those decisions as a group, as a collective, but like it's creating this space for those healers and people to do their work without feeling the constraint of when I first started this path 7 years ago. I did it by maxing out my credit card. And then this DAO supports people who are on that path and who might not have all the resources to do it, but have the potential or the talent, and that we can definitely utilize in the world of solving that issue. Yeah, cool. Anyone else want to chime in? Don't be shy. All ideas are welcome.
I'm listening. But I have the idea about the butterfly DAO.
Oh, okay.
And it's newsroom that can be ultrasound positive. At the beginning, it's like an internet newsroom that write how the blockchain can change the world. So we start with a blog that recruits people to the Discord. Then we submit ideas for an NFT that will be the path to participate in coffee pop-ups around the world. But first we have to vote on which is the first NFT. So we collect resources and we can fund printers around the world so we can have a sort of fanzines that spread the word. Did I explain myself?
I think I caught most of it, but yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I think I got it. You want to? What was it called again? What was it? Butterfly DAO.
Butterfly, like the book from Melville. I'd rather not do it. That book.
Okay, can you post it in the general chat? Yeah, post me the source. That sounds incredible. But this idea of like pop-up coffee shop stuff.
Yes.
You could totally do it. I'm talking to some guys about a decentralized conference of sorts.
And I used to work in a coffee shop.
Yeah, you can have a global pop-up coffee shop DAO. You just meet for coffee somewhere. That sounds beautiful. You can do it.
Thank you.
No, I love it. Please do it. This is the thing. I want to be able to have anyone come up with the wackiest idea possible, and we can do it. And yeah, no, I just think it was like that's just a beautiful example of one. Yes, yeah. I was talking to a project the other day that was doing NFT rentals, and it's on our DeFi Live panel actually. If someone's got that YouTube it's in our newsletter. It's in the newsletter. There's mortgage your NFTs, and it made total sense when it's like, look, so I'm talking to a guy who wants to sell $10,000 memberships to this club in London, but you could rent them out for the night. If you're not using it that night, you can rent it out for a night. Rent your ticket out to someone else. It's a kind of price discovery thing. Let's say I build a club for 600 people. It can house 600 people at any one time. It's cool. NFT, art, places to work, places to chill, a 3 a.m. license where you can get whiskey and cigars in London. That's scarce ground. Everyone's going to want to be in there, but you can only get 600 people in it, but you've got 10,000 NFTs. So you need a crypto economic mechanism for brokering access to it.
Yeah.
And I keep coming back to harbinger taxes. You can hold your spot, but someone can kick you out if they want to pay more for it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's got an inbuilt sort of supply and demand mechanism.
Yes.
But you've also got the network effects, because the more people that join and contribute their token, then the more value.
And we're getting slightly into the details of the entrance to a DAO now.
True.
So we've got to be a citizen to vote in our bank.vote, for example. You need a ID. I'm talking to a guy who did crypto grills about doing an FET crypto grills series for us. Oh, someone dig that link up. Anyway, that's going to be our entrance ticket to the DAO, voting in the thing. And you get some art with it. We've had art in the past. Token price went super high for a bit while there was art on them. And then when it fell back to the utility floor, which is just you can vote in markets and do our governance stuff, they've gone back to 100 FET because they decay in price back to a floor quite quickly. So that's how you can broker a membership. Buy them whenever you want, but if people all buy them at once, they go expensive. Or you can issue them 10,000 in one go to anyone who buys them. Problem is, you don't want some whale buying 2/3 of them and running your membership. So you need a distribution mechanism. So you need whitelisting and all that sort of stuff.
Do you think there's any space for having kind of weighted, like if you hold more NFTs, you get, like I've seen certain NFT projects where it's just one NFT, one vote, but you can buy more than one.
Yes.
I guess this is what you're touching on, because you don't want it to be over.
With quadratic voting. So if you've got 10 NFTs, you don't get 10 times 100 voice credits. Well, you do, but you just, when you're spending them on your votes.
Yeah.
So you get 1,000 voice credits, but you can only vote like 16 on something. You can't vote like 400 or whatever it is. So that's why quadratic voting is necessary for NFT governance, because otherwise the whales just come in and run the show. And if that's a club, you just don't want the richest dudes running everything.
Yeah, I need to dig into the quadratic vote video from the other week in more detail.
Yeah, it doesn't get too long before you start closing off edge cases, and DAOs get to human quite quickly, and that means things go wrong. It just gets complicated. It becomes a governance thing. People have to run an organization at that point, manage people, and not manage people. It's like people manage themselves. That's the difference in DAOs. Self-organization as opposed to I'm going to tell you what to do. I've found today super helpful. I'm happy to stick around for a little bit longer.
Out there, just while we're on.
Yeah. Just let me frame the rest of the thing, and then I want people to. I would be happy if people lived in this radio thing, imagining DAOs 24/7. I think the best engine room is if our DAO radio is chocked full of people imagining DAOs full time. So yeah, let's keep going. I've got some meetings and stuff. Unfortunately, we are actually doing a live NFT launch. I just want to hang around and imagine DAOs for the rest of the day. But we've got loads of stuff to do. So I'm going to hang around for a bit longer. I absolutely love it. And if I'm going to tinker around doing bits of work, I'll be listening. Just shout at me if you want me to. Any feedback on any ideas. But yeah, love it. Go for it, Rob. What's your DAO?
Let's go.
It was more just, it's called Disaster DAO, which sounds horribly, but it's really around allocation of resources for disaster response. So a lot of times when you have a really that goes off, a lot of the formal, let's say, government infrastructures that are in place can be massively disrupted. And how do you organize people to allocate resources at the most and prioritize that allocation, really? So yeah, again, it's really just a thought I had and haven't really taken it much further. But I feel like a lot of organizations that already work within the kind of disaster relief and response sector, they don't really have a great framework to work together in some ways. Yeah, that was just an idea that I've had for a bit.
What's the coordination layer? So can you guys hear me? Oh, we've lost Rob. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think we lost Rob. That's why he didn't respond. So I'll throw another one out there. If anyone wants to jump in, throw theirs out, please do. So I think that a lot of hedge funds, especially BlackRock and these other sort of really big pension hedge fundy type things, have actually completely failed their fiduciary duty to their investors. So I'm not climate change, I think is it's still a developing science. There's so much to learn. It's not about that debate. It's about the role of a fiduciary service to make money for their investors. And I think BlackRock has completely failed in their duty to do that. And there are other pension investors, hedge funds type things that have also failed in their fiduciary duty to their investors. So by fiduciary duty, make money. Your job as a pension company is to invest my money so I can retire at some point. And I think a lot of these companies have actually failed to do that. And I think a DAO that would allow... Oh, hello, mate. You're back.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, it was an idea I've just had for a while. Obviously, it came from that bomb went off in Lebanon, and I had a few friends who were living there, and they'd actually created websites to help organise relief projects in the local area. It was super community driven.
Disasters DAO.
Yeah, sorry, I cut out.
You did.
What happened for a minute? I don't know if
I think we went into what was it? Was it decentralized BlackRock you were doing?
No, the idea is to set up a DAO that would allow people to pseudonymously or actually dox themselves, but allow them to club together and put a class action suit against BlackRock for failing to...
Holy shit, man.
Yeah,
so
they failed the fiduciary.
So people were talking about that in about 2017, initial litigation offerings. ILL, I think, who was it? The guy behind Avalanche was pushing for them a while ago.
I think there's something there. They failed their fiduciary duty. There's never really been a mechanism to go after them. But now with DAOs and the ability for people to coordinate globally...
Jesus Christ, yeah. People collectivizing their legal buying power.
Yep. You could actually do it. And I think that would put the cat amongst the pigeons. That was my spicy idea.
Jesus Christ, man. I want you to take it back.
No.
No. Put that one back in the box.
If you're going to try and buy the Constitution, sue BlackRock, why not?
Oh, man. They'll come for you. You can have that one. Just having legal buying power is the power. That is, you can take on the fucking world if you've got a room full of lawyers. You give me a mountain full of lawyers and we can take on the world. But without them, you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to do that against Tesla because of all the devastation that mining cobalt does in in also the DRC. So they've actually bought Tesla shares so that they have a say in the Tesla board meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah, so collectivizing your buying power.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, and so that's where, if governance tokens play out to where I think they might go, that's the kind of, you'll be buying influence in those networks, in specific DAOs, specific mini DAOs. So there's like a whole branch of like activist DAOs that could happen quite quickly. And they're going to really piss people off because that's what activists do. Normally they go for the government, right? I'm really fucked off with this. Like, let's pool our resources and do it. And I've thought about them a lot. And I was very into politics for a long time. And it's just so messy and dangerous. And I think you do need lawyers if you're going to play that game. The more you get into the real world, how much of your money are you willing to spend on defending yourself with lawyers?
And I think that's the beauty of class action DAO. Because
do you know what the major problem is going to be? Is convincing lawyers to work for crypto.
I think there'll always be someone out there that will do it, and then it's like anything. You have to convince the first person.
I've not met many lawyers yet that accept crypto.
Unless
there's some like Better Call Saul type characters knocking about.
What about the Coder's Law guy? Like, he's just like an ultimate representation of a lawyer who would work for crypto, right? Coder's Law, you know?
Yeah, I argue with him on Twitter all the time. Crypto law guy.
What you do is you establish it in Wyoming, do your thing. I know it's not ideal, but you do the legal wrapper thing, because that's just what you'll probably need in order to take someone to court. And then I'm sure there will be lawyers in Wyoming that would take that case. Whoever pushed that
100%.
Through. So you can get lawyers. I think.
The only way I would establish anything in Wyoming is like a fodder DAO. Like, I do a DAO somewhere else, and that's just going to be my like shell DAO that you can attack with lawyers in Wyoming and what have you.
Freddie's suggesting we make lawyer coin. The last thing in the world I want to do is make lawyer coin. Someone else can have that one. I just like staying in the metaverse. There's enough going on in purely digital assets, pure digital world, digital land, NFTs, imagination, without getting I'm staying away from the real world for a bit, as much as possible. But that's only, I think one of my bits of advice would be that mental heuristic. How real world is it? The more real world is it, the more work it is. Because there's just barriers in the real world you have to break through. The most rapidly iterating DAOs will be very digital ones, which is why I'm super bullish on NFT.
So on your education DAO, Nick, because I think about education not a lot, but fair enough to put some thought around it. And for me, I just think the education system, pretty much globally, right, is not fit for purpose, because it hasn't evolved really in the last 200 years. Nothing has really changed the nature of it.
I'm supposed to be talking to the Deep DAO guys now. I'm going to have to drop off.
Okay.
They're waiting for me. I'll see you in a bit.
See you in a bit. So all I was going to say is I think a DAO that focused on reimagining the education system and then delivering education through the DAO would be really interesting, because I think a lot of people feel pretty disenfranchised, not
disenchanted.
Yeah, with standard education, it's just not fit for purpose, and no one in any country around the world is really willing to take on changing their system, because it's like the legacy. It just is what it is, and no one's.
What's good about this idea, and I met a lot of disenchanted professors back in the day. I was in social science, department. You could headhunt all these disenchanted academics and get them into this kind of DAO. Education the way they wanted it to be when they joined this.
100%, and be uncancelable as well, so they can actually have a controversial opinion and not get cancelled for it, which is pretty much the state of play.
And then there is a lot of this is also about peer reviews, right? It's like right now in academia, it seems like a lot of the time like the way research gets amplified is like you cite what is cited the most, and then you get your citation index up. And what is happening is a bit like Twitter right now on all these influencers, quote unquote. It doesn't, like, their content is not the best, it's just the most amplified. And there's like literally zero incentive to find some weird research or like redoing experiments, for instance. It's really like, it's nothing that people want to do.
You don't piss into the wind with peer-reviewed research. You piss
into the wind. Exactly. That's like a motto of normal education, of the mainstream education system. Piss with the wind. Yeah.
And so therefore, bad ideas get perpetuated. Good ideas die on the vine. Good research gets ignored. Bad research gets amplified, and then on. It cycles and cycles.
There's also an economic thing, right? So we tend to believe or want to believe that research is all like open, and when you discover something you share with your fellow researchers across the world. But that's not how it works. You're never going to get a grant if everyone else is doing this, right? If it's so, you really have to keep a lot of this stuff like for yourself. Then you get a grant, then you start bragging about it, and that's that slows down the innovation. Like, for instance, a lot of it I heard in biotech and stuff, like medical research, you want to get the grant, so you don't talk about it because someone else is going to go and apply for a grant with the same topic or something like this. I don't know. I never experienced it, but I heard of it.
100%. So you've got two systems in like academia. Shame Nick's not here because I'm banging on his world. I'm like, you guys are all shit. So like you've got the idea of tenure and the idea of grants, and those two ideas basically mean that you've got capture of the academic system, because people, all they're doing is they're fighting for tenures or they're fighting for grants, and they're not fighting for the idea per se. So you've got this really poorly incentivized system, which means again you get bad outcomes. So I think if you could reimagine what tenures and grants look like, and with something like Education DAO, or Knowledge DAO, whatever you want to call it, you have a kind of a form of UBI or basic income or whatever. So these researchers don't feel the need that they need to go out and like basically sell their souls for like really bad ideas. They can actually pursue something which is like truly of value add to them and to society or to whatever field they're in. So you need to make sure people have got like this income so they're not making bad decisions to like make more income in something else. I think that's really important because, to your point, I think there's a guy called Matthew, I can't remember his name now, Matthew something, and his idea of innovation is two ideas that meet, make love, have a baby, and the baby's called innovation. And that's one of the things, like I think to your point, that's missing a lot of the times because people don't allow their ideas to meet, or they just put their ideas in an envelope and put them in a drawer and it never comes out again. So that's my rant.